Hello, yes, that's right. It's Joe here, live on Joyrider TV for some more scintillating Q&A, where hopefully I'm going to be answering your most challenging catamaran sailing questions. Yes, that's right. As advertised, I'm going to be looking at how I go about filming the action on Joyrider TV and some recommendations. This is actually in response to a preloaded question from Nismok D88 or Nismo CD88 or Nism OCD88, one of the three. Who asks, I'm starting to make videos with my boat. What are your typical GoPro recording settings and recommendations? So I just thought I'd go through this first and then I'll check in with everybody who's checking in. I hope that seems fair. All right, so I've made some notes. So firstly, to directly answer the question, or before I go into answering the question, let's just talk what cameras am I using for the videos on Joyrider TV. Now, it has become my sort of daily driver is the GoPro Max. Looks like that. It's got a camera on both sides. That is because it is a 360 camera. So though this sort of camera is the one that records sometimes quite a distorted image where it's kind of like curved quite a lot. That's because we're trying, even when the camera's quite close, we can kind of zoom out and get a lot of the what's going on in the picture. Of course, it's better to have a slightly longer slightly bigger distance between the subject and the camera. We will be coming on to that in part 2. But it's really versatile. And the great thing with any 360 camera is you don't have to worry too much about, well, at all, about which way it's pointing, because you can edit where you want the camera to look in the editing process afterwards. It's very clever because it's got 2 lenses, one on either side. It uses clever stuff in the software to basically splice the 2 images from both cameras together, which gives it that complete 360 end result, which you can look at anything with. So the question has arisen quite often, what would you go for given the choice? Usually you go for what you've got, which is why I use the GoPro Max. Thanks again to Trey for gifting me this camera about 2 or 3 years ago. Since you gave it to me, I have used it more than anything else because it is so versatile. But the question between GoPro Max or Insta360, I'd say camera for camera, I prefer the GoPro Max. I have used the Insta360. Now, there's a lot of bad press, or let's call it overly positive press for the Insta compared to the GoPro on YouTube at the moment. But I think they do the same job. It's just a slightly different shape. With the GoPro Max, it's obviously just like this. Whereas the Insta, if I got something that's sort of Insta shape, yeah, like this, is more like this, perhaps not quite as tall. But the reason I prefer this one is because when you've got it strapped to your helmet, it sticks up that much. Whereas with the Insta, if you've got it on your head, you've got more height above your head, which you could clang on the boom or get caught somewhere, or, you know, more stuff up there isn't what you want, which is why I'm happy with this. But if I had an Insta360, I'd be perfectly happy with that as well. Now, the big advantage with the Insta360 is actually the software which you use to edit the images with afterwards. Because the great thing with the Insta is you can actually say to it, I want me, the subject, to be in the center of the shot for the whole video. Whereas with the GoPro, you can't do that. You have to do what's called keyframing, which is like every couple of seconds, you put in a little, what's called a keyframe, which is like a point in your editing timeline. And then you reframe the image to get what you want in the middle of the shot. And then you go forwards another couple of seconds. So it's quite a time consuming task unless you happen to be going in the same direction all of the time. So that is the big selling point for the Insta360. But the selling point for the GoPro Max is it's not as tall. It's slightly slimmer, but not as tall as the Insta, which means you're less likely to whack it on the boom. So having said that, what settings do I use? Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw it. It wasn't a tremendously popular video, but I recently made, we're actually coming off here and we're going to have a look over here. This is my new case for all of my camera stuff, which I made. There is a video on how I did this. This stuff that it all mounts in is called shadow foam. And there we go. That very nice. Oh yes. So that, I think, is a very practical solution for me, especially with the world tour about to begin. But my other daily driver camera is it God, I can't remember what it looks like. It's been a while since I've been on a boat. Is this one? It's the GoPro Hero 8, which is, you know, if you're looking at buying a GoPro, is there any need to buy the latest one? I would say no. I think the 8 is the oldest one that you should go for, given the choice. Of course, if you go for an older one, you'll get it cheaper. But with the 8, that was the first one where they really started doing a great job with the stabilization, which means even if it's moving around a bit like this, the very clever stuff that's inside the camera will make it look like it's perfectly stable. So the 8, I think, is a good option. But of course, the newer camera, you get more options to film in higher quality, and that's nice as well. And the stabilization, I believe, in the newer ones is even better. So the question, what settings do I generally use? Yeah, so frame rate. I'm not going to explain what frame rate is. That's I go for 24 frames per second, just because apparently that is what you should do, and it gives I think it looks nice. And the one, if you've got, this is a general fairly low frame rate, which apparently Hollywood uses, which me and Hollywood, we're very similar. And the only thing that isn't so good if you're using this low frame rate, like 24 frames per second, is if you want to do any slow-mo stuff. Because if you have more frames in each second, if you slow the video down, like if you do a really good pitch pole and you want to really see what's going on, then with the low frame rate, it will look a bit blurred if you slow it down. Whereas if you basically, if you double that frame rate, so if you went to 48 frames per second, it would look just as smooth playing back at half the speed, because you've got double the frames. And then of course you can double them again and again, and then slow it down more and more, still achieving the same level of clarity in the footage when it's slowed down. That's if you're going to do slow-mo stuff, but I don't so much, so 24 frames per second is good for me. The other bad thing about filming in a higher frame rate is, sorry, I didn't mention any bad things about it, but the reason to avoid the higher frame rate unless you're going to do slow-mo is because there's more frames per second. That's more information that has to be stored on your SD card, which is obviously going to take up more space, and then it's going to be more labor intensive for whatever you're going to process that footage with, your computer or your phone. So it's much quicker, lower frame rate. There we go. All right, next, what resolution or quality do I like to film in? Well, with the GoPro Max, which is now in the box, the highest quality, because you do have the option with this bad boy to either film 360 or just use it like a regular camera. And if you're using it like a regular camera, the highest quality you can film in is 1080, which is actually the highest quality that can be shown on YouTube, I believe. So as long as you're not trying to zoom into the picture, 1080 is fine. But if I had the choice to film in 4K, which is now the kind of standard, this is what everyone's filming in, then I would, because it gives you that bit of flexibility to zoom into the picture, but still maintaining the high quality image. Whereas if you're filming in 1080 or in a lower resolution, if you try zooming into the picture, you lose quality, which you don't want to do. So the highest quality possible. But again, if you're doing this, if you've got a less juicy computer that you're going to be editing the footage with, the higher resolution, same as the higher frame rate, is going to require more processing power to edit the footage that you've got. So just bear that in mind if you're thinking, right, I've got the new GoPro 12, it can film in, I think, 5.7K, and unless you've got a fairly decent computer, it's going to really start making a lot of noises when you start trying to edit that footage. So there we go. And then what width? So with these cameras, with the GoPros, you've got the option to film in, I think, 4 different widths. So there's one called, what do we have? We have narrow, which you'd want to use if you were doing, like, maybe if you needed it a bit tighter shot. Then it goes to linear, which is a bit wider, and then wide, which is very much a standard width to go for, wide. But if I've got this on my head, on the helmet, I go super view now. I didn't before because it does very slightly distort the image, like curves it slightly. But I prefer to go super view and have that very slight curving rather than missing something out of the shot because the angle perhaps isn't absolutely perfect. So there we go. Super view if on the helmet, but if you're mounting it on a fixed place on the boat, then you should have the option before you start to take a look through on the screen to see what the image is going to look like, and then decide whether you need it. Generally, if you're mounting it on the boat, it would be either wide or super view to make sure you get plenty of stuff in. But if you've got the camera behind the boat or in front of the boat looking back, you just want to make sure if your sailors are on the trapeze that you're not chopping their heads off with the footage there. There we go. I think that is a good start. And yeah, so that is that. I think I'm going to check in with everybody who's checking in. Thanks for joining this afternoon, this evening, this morning, whatever time of day it is where you are. All right, let's see who we've got in the live chat. We've got Cucks Ollie on board. He's wishing everybody a nice day. We got Mark in Ohio. Glad to be in your company. Glad that you could make it as always, Mark. Jan Leo is there. Last ski day in Colorado. Back to Berlin on Sunday, but there's no decent wind in the forecast. What's Joe's miracle no wind fixer elixir? Nice. Yeah, I would say have something else up your sleeve that you can do so that you're not so that it's not too much of a blow to your spirit when you can't get out. Like for me in the winter, it's generally the mountain biking. Do quite a lot. I'm out most days on the bike because the conditions just aren't right for the boating. And yeah, so getting out on the bike seems like a much better option. And I should think when you get back to Berlin, it's going to be pretty chilly as well. I know a lot of the German sailors have probably not stopped sailing the whole winter and are probably saying, come on, Joe, stop being so soft. But for me, I have become a little bit fair weather sailor, and it does have to warm up slightly if I'm actually going to build a boat and put it on the water a little bit. Yeah, so that's what I reckon. Have something else up your sleeve that you're ready to do if the wind isn't up to it. All right, Leland Lee is on board in Clearwater, Florida. As always, we've got Benny in Sweden. He's online. All right, we got at Hanny in Amsterdam. The sun was shining today. Very nice too. Yeah, it's been pretty decent weather here in Greece. It's got a bit stormy the last couple of days. And I think it's set to continue being a little bit iffy like that throughout the next week. All right, we've got Armored Lion on board. Nice to have you with us, Armored Lion. My username is Armored Lion. So hopefully it doesn't throw you for a loop again. Oh, yeah, because I probably read it slightly wrong. Can't wait to dust off the cats soon. Yeah, dusting off the tornado, and the first one to get some attention. 2 jobs I've been working on with the tornado, and I'm because like a picture. Oh, how am I going to draw this? Like, all right. Hull shape may not be accurate, but on the tornado, we've got a self-tacking jib. Or actually, let's pronounce the self-tacking jib a little bit. There's the mast, and there is the jib. Now, one of the problems that I've got with Bad Boy 94, my tornado, is that the self-tacking jib protrudes too far forwards, which means you can't get quite enough tension on the jib sheets. You can see how this would be a problem, especially as the wind starts picking up. When you get double trapezing, we really want to be cranking the jib in pretty tight because that flattens the jib off, which I believe in the trade they call blading the jib, which makes it very flat and very efficient, very low drag. But if you can't blade the jib, you've just got too much shape, which is going to cause drag, which is what I've been experiencing. So my job today was to basically bring the self-tacking jib butt rail. So what we've got is front beam, and then we've got these posts that stick forwards from the front beam, and onto those posts mounts the track for the jib, and on the track is the car, which takes care of all the self-tacking business. For your reference, here's where the mast steps. The holes would be here and here. Very good. So yes, so what I've been doing today is cutting these bars down and to bring that track more into the boat. Now, to cut a long story short, I made a mess of it and it is now broken. So yeah, so back to the drawing board. I'm sure I'm going to find a solution to remount the track so it's as close to the beam as possible, but still it has to have a certain amount of distance from the beam, because otherwise the car on the track might catch, which would be no good. Job number 2 on the Tornado has been, to be honest, I haven't started yet. I've just started ordering the stuff I need to do the job. But where the centerboard comes out here, on the bottom of the hull, if I just draw that part of the hull from, if we're looking at the bottom of the hull, we've got what would be called the slot where the centerboard comes out of. And to stop water from going up the slot, we have what's called a slot gasket, which is basically, it's like a mylar material. So like a cloth which has been impregnated with resin to make it stiff, and that gets glued, closing the slot, so that when the centerboard is down, there would be a gap like here otherwise behind. So this gasket is to close the slot so that water doesn't go up there, and it also closes the slot around the centerboard as well. So those are my 2 Tornado jobs that I've started so far. Hopefully in the next couple of days, or once the weather has cleared up, I will get my 16 out and start making some video with that, because the 16 that I've got is going to undergo a major restoration project. On that note, by the way, thanks very much to everybody who entered the competition / challenge to help me design my new set of sails that are going to go on that 16. I'm not going to announce the winner until the sails get unveiled. The unveiling of the sails will be at Ocean Springs, Mississippi, USA. I think they'll, I don't know which day though. It'll be at the start of April when I'm in Ocean Springs, because that's when I should be receiving them from Chip at Whirlwind Sales. And that is when the winner will be announced of the Who Designed the Sails competition. But thank you very much to everybody who got involved. It was very nice looking at everybody's designs. And to be honest, there was about 10 that I could have very easily chosen, but obviously I could only choose one, and that's the one that I chose. So thanks very much to everyone for that. All right, back to checking in. All right, we got Scott on board, dropping it in the slot. Nice to have you with us, Scott. Good morning, and good morning to Ryan in Maui from Central Pacific Island of Maui. Spring trade winds are returning. Very nice. Then I'm expecting a bit of I don't know, Nacra 500 or perhaps something else from your quiver on the speed stick fairly soon. On the topic of the speed stick, in case it's not completely clear about the speed stick, is you can update your entry as many times as you like. Example, you go out sailing tomorrow and you do 12 knots and you think, that's not very quick. I'll see if I could go a bit quicker on Sunday. You go out on Sunday, you do 15 knots. You think that's better. And you send me the results and get on the speed stick. Very nice. 15 knots for you on the stick. The following weekend, perhaps you go out and you do 17 knots. And that is your top speed from that weekend. As long as the speed's still going upwards, you can just keep sending me your updated speeds and I will update that on the speed stick. It's not like you can only submit your speed once and then that is it for the year. Oh, no, you get plenty of opportunity to notch it up. So notch it up. This is incidentally, in fact, I made a sticker as well. The 2024 speed stick. This is what it says on my t-shirt, like here. Yeah, there we go. So if you head over to the speed stick page at totaljoyrider.com, you can pick yourself up a speed stick t-shirt and get in the mood. Lovely. Or a hoodie. All right, we got Chris on board in Germany. Hope you will win the battle against the computer. Yeah, I hope so too. There might have been a 10-year-old in the house last week who went and started gaming online. I found out afterwards, which might have upset the stability of the internet in the Joyrider TV studios. So apologies for that last week. All right, we got Aaron on board in New Zealand, probably about 5 a.m, I should think, if not earlier. Thanks for tuning in, Aaron. We've got Bertrand on board in Brittany, France. Bonjour. Hope that it's all good with you and the weather isn't too bad where you are. Right, we've got Stephen on board as well. He's tuned in for his Joyrider fix. Leland Lee says club races start back up this weekend. And we got First Light Sailing. It's Christian in from Galliano Island, British Columbia, Canada. Nice. Right, Kevin's with us somewhere in what's it called, Michigan, I believe, and he's greeting all the Joyriders around the world. Andre's with us, Brittany, France, as well. We've got Francesco in Switzerland. We've got Aclass Catamaran AC Nano, Best from Berlin, and welcome back to Yan Leo. And then we've got a hello from Russia. I think, sorry, I'm still no better at reading Russian at this time. Apologies for that. All right, First Light Sailing suggests if there's no wind, rowing is a good option. In fact, that is what did have a little bit of a what would you call that, some popularity at my home sailing club in the UK, Felixstowe Ferry on the East Coast. There became a very popular rowing department at the club. The club got hold of 2 coxed fours, which are where you've got 4 people who row and 1 person at the end steering and shouting at everybody. 2 coxed fours and 2 single sculls when I was still there. And it was very popular. When there wasn't wind, it would be pretty hilarious taking the 2 fours out on the water and racing. God, there was some good shouting going on those days. All right, we got Ufi Tunik tuning in from Turkey. Thanks for tuning in. Great to have you with us. All right. So Mark says, do you find, oh, hello, that cloud movement affects gusts, and read the clouds in anticipation of the gust. In Ohio, it seems that a cloud coming is gusty and a cloud leaving is calmer. This is a fine question on the topic of meteorology. And to be honest, Mark, I think what you say is very much true. But in most of the locations where I've sailed in the last, I'd have to say in the last probably 30 years or so, it's all been, I'm saying it again, fair weather sailing. So it's all been pretty blue sky stuff. And if there has been clouds, generally high clouds, if anything, and I haven't actually been subject to that effect personally in the last time. But from what I remember from back in my days on the east coast of England, that clouds would certainly have gusts coming off them. So if there's some clouds coming in, you want to get there first to get hold of that sweet wind before your competition. That is what I think. Armored Lion, I have epoxied my corner castings to the hulls to eliminate some wiggle. I started noticing some coming from the back crossbar now. Have you ever had to epoxy the crossbars? Now, if you mean where the crossbars join the castings, which would be so if this is the beam, so if this is the back beam especially, because it's straight, and then the back beam would be riveted on to a casting on each end like this, which then locates onto the pylon, which is on the hull like this. So that would go like that. So if you're talking about some movement between here and here, then yes, that is quite common to get some movement there. And generally the fix for that is to replace the pop rivets that hold it together, because what happens as the boat gets more use, especially if the boat's quite stiff, because of course if there's movement between the casting and the pylon, then that's taking most of that flexing strain, rather than the actual beam to casting joint taking that strain. But if we're taking that movement out of there, that strain is going to get passed on to here. So yes, that is going to possibly just distort those rivets enough to allow those pieces to move. And yeah, I would say if you are going to take all of the rivets out from the casting, take it apart, and then put it back together, re-rivet it, why not put some epoxy in there to get it super stiff? I think that's a great idea. Part of my project with the 16 that I'm putting back together is going to be to epoxy it, because at the moment it is as loose as a goose. I don't know how loose, but I'll be taking a look at that shortly. Yeah, so that is very interesting. And yeah, so I haven't had to, but maybe it is on the cards for me as well. All right, Mark says, Joe, will you be in the States for the total eclipse on April the 8th? I would not travel much on that day. Hold on, let's have a look. I've got here my travel plans. Yeah, so April the 9th, I am flying back. So I think on the 8th, I'll be in, I believe it's called New Orleans. which would be nice. Looking forward to that very much. Cuxolly, but they are very fast on the speed stick just at the beginning of the year. Oh, I can't remember what we were referring to there. All right, continuing. Fawn G in Germany, Russian guy Alexander said hello from Russia. All right, great. Thanks for that. Hello to Alexander in Russia. Great to have you on board. We've got Rob on board as well in the Netherlands. How is the wind in May in Vasiliki? I booked starting up the speed stick. Great stuff. Yeah, I tell you what, May in Vasiliki can be an absolute winner, especially earlier on in May. Now, one of the good things about coming to Vasiliki, do some sailing earlier on in May, is it is before all of the windsurfing clubs have opened. So you get the whole bay to yourself, which is just such a gift. With the wind, generally, if it's good weather, you know, across Europe, in Greece, if it's good weather, generally the gradient wind will coming from the northwest. And if that wind is from the northwest, then yes, there'll be some good wind. It's less likely, just because of the general weather conditions, for it to be that sweet cross shore every day of the week. But if I was coming out like first week in May, I would still expect 3 absolute classic days in a week. If there was less than that, I would be a little bit disappointed. But, you know, weather is weather, and it's pretty warm pretty early already here. So who knows what that means for the future. There we go. Armored Lion. Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for your question. If anybody else got any questions, I've hopefully got some answers. So just on the topic, back to where here he is, on the topic of camera mounts, where to put them, and then that is so if this is our Catamaran, something that is very handy to have. Let's go for the longest mounts first, and then go inboard as we go. So something very handy to get hold of for camera mounting is old windsurfing mast, because the windsurfing mast is stiff enough that you can put a camera on it and it's not going to cause it to bend so much. So my main choices for using this sort of windsurf mast camera mount is, the first one is to take it off the back. This would usually involve strapping the windsurf mast to the boom, and you only need half of the windsurf mast for this, like the top section, strapped to the boom, going back. And then if you're using a regular GoPro like this, I would usually have it so it's mounted underneath, not on top, because then you've got the pole in your shot in the way of everything that's going on the boat, and that's most interesting. But have it underneath, perhaps if you've got a so you could use a kind of mount like this to go onto the pole, and then you could even have an extension piece that comes downwards off here, so that the camera is quite a lot further down than the pole. Very nice. Yeah, so that is if you're using a regular camera, not a 360 camera. Whereas if you are using a 360 camera, the trick you may have seen shots where it looks like there's no pole holding the camera at all. it looks like there's a very good drone pilot chasing. The trick there is you take your stick like this, or whatever you're mounting on, and the camera, to get rid of the pole, the way that it works is the pole has to be hidden by the bottom of the camera. So like this, and then that means you don't see the whole of the pole, which looks very cool. So that would be if you're using a 360 camera. And the other positions for this long pole would be if you're sailing a boat that doesn't have a spinnaker pole, you can use the same long pole, take it from here and basically turn it into like how a spinnaker pole would be on the boat. Go forwards through the bridle wires like this, and then camera on the end looking back at the boat, and that looks very classy. Now, what looks very cool indeed, and you may have seen it in some of the more recent videos, do this in a different color, is to take the same long pole, and rather than taking this end from here, taking that end from right over at the corner of the boat, so the camera actually ends up in front of the sailors, like when the sailors are on this tack. That is an absolutely magnificent shot. Very nice indeed. All right, next long pole shot that I use a lot is taking one end of the pole here, and then it will from basically from the lowest part of the dolphin striker and then up this way. So similar to this shot, except it's more like a close-up, so you can see really what's going on with the sailors on the boat. Very nice. Now, the one downside of this mount is if that is on the leeward side of the boat, if you start flying a hull, you could very easily start dragging the camera in the water, which for me is a little bit too much for high risk strategy. So I keep the boat very flat if this is on the leeward side, or I'll move it completely. Mr. Tony KP, great to have you with us. It's okay. You don't have to be on time. We didn't take the register today. All right, we're just going through some camera mounting possibilities. In fact, let's draw the camera on this one so we know where we are. Very nice. Yeah, so this is my kind of go-to long pole mounts. And then if we can we draw here? Yes, we can. If this is the boom, here's the mast. So we've got our mainsail like here, main sheet like that, and then there's the hull like that. All right, so some other mounting options is one of my favorite mounts of all time is this one. This is actually homemade from, this is what's called a windsurfing boom clamp adapter, which basically the diameter of the windsurf mast got thinner than they used to be. So to be able to still use the same boom, you had to use an adapter with your thin mast. And these adapters happen to be perfect for clipping onto the boom. It's and they hold very securely. This is also perfect for if you have got a bowsprit, a spinnaker pole on your boat. You can clip this on, and I would if you are clipping onto the spinnaker pole, just be aware of the fact you might be putting the spinnaker up, and you don't want your spinnaker getting tangled up with the mount. But the best positions for this boom mount is I like to have it at the front of the boom. And then you can have the camera. If it's a 360 camera, of course, doesn't matter. It will catch all of the action. But if it's a regular camera, then to have it on some sort of swivel kind of joint like this, all of this sort of stuff you could get from Amazon, or if you've got time, you can get it from China. And, you know, it will take 2 months to arrive, but you could pick up something like this for 50 cents and it works really nicely. Sorry, I'll put it there. And it means you can rotate it when you tack, so you're always in the shot. But the front of the boom is better than further back on the boom, because if it's windy and your sail is flogging, the further back on the boom it is, the more your camera's getting shaken, and the more likely it is it's actually going to get dislodged. So further forwards is better, and you just need to be aware that it's there. So that is a really great place to put your camera, just there. But you may have seen from the Tornado Worlds last year, there was another angle that was being used on the boat, and that was with a mount like this, and I was putting that at the back of the boom, further back than the main sheet, at an angle pointing at the sailors on the boat, so you could really see what was going on. I thought that was pretty nice, actually. And for me, one of the main reasons to have more than one camera on the boat is because it does happen sometimes that one of your lens might get distorted, might have some salt water on there, which has become just like a salty film. This is no good. So to have a second camera as your backup, especially if you're doing something fairly significant, is always very nice. Another key mount that gets used is, of course, the bridle wire mount. So that would be to put the camera here. And in fact, from looking at other people's videos on Facebook and Instagram and things, this really does seem to be one of the most popular positions to put the camera, because it is very practical to put it there. I've got 2 mounts that do that. This is the homemade one that I myself, that's why it's homemade. All of these pieces I got from eBay, which you could just find stuff like this and make it so it works. So this just basically pins in to the chain plate for the forestay. So this is just below the bridle wires. Very nice. And you get to see all of the action with that one. And then more recently, this is the mount called the Office Hands Dave, as pioneered by Office Hands Dave, where we've just got a little piece here that I've made out of some stuff that I bought off eBay. Then this is the case for the Hero 7. Got a carabiner there, and that clips on to the shackle of the bridle wires where they meet. And then these lines just go down to the base of the bridle wires, one on each side, elastic there that holds it tight. And yeah, it gets the same shot as the previous one, but it's far easier to make, and it is so quick to put it on the boat. I think that is one of the really attractive points with that one there. Very nice. But with this, that one on the elastic, what is important is that your camera does have inbuilt stabilization. So if it's one of the earlier GoPros, like I think it would be any earlier than the 6, before the 6, not very good stabilization. So you're going to get quite a shaky picture, which isn't going to be so good. Yeah, so those are most of my go-to mounts. Another one, of course, is there we've got the tiller extension. And I think this is a really fun one, but using a little fella like this, you can actually clamp the camera onto the tiller extension, and this means it'll be pointing straight at you all of the time, because of course you're always holding the tiller extension, so wherever that goes, the camera's going to go there too. And I quite like that. I think that's a cool shot. I don't use it so much, but I do like it. Yeah, the tiller extension mount. And then another very handy one to have in your quiver is, again, get one of these from China for €2. Can we see this? It is like a rather aggressive clip, and you could just clip that on anywhere to the boat. Anywhere you can clip it there, see how the shot comes out. Very nice. All right, so there we go. Of course, my most favorite camera mounting position is on the head, because it's so quick to do, and you use your head as a gimbal, so your head is always looking where you want the action to be captured. You just have to be a bit kind of mindful of where you're going to point your head. That is all. All right, so we've got, oh, how do I pronounce that? Wine Me. Oh, it's Wine Me Too. Yes, it's almost time for a bit of that here in Greece. Your videos gave me lots of confidence and help improve my catamaran sailing skills. More on foiling, please. And just bought my camera. Excellent stuff. Yeah, so hopefully this is of great use to talk about some camera settings and mounting options. On the topic of could we have some more foiling, please, on Joyrider TV? Yes, I hope so. But the reason there hasn't been any catamaran foiling on Joyrider TV is basically just I haven't had the opportunity here in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece, to have a foiling catamaran here. But with the advent of the world tour about to start, then hopefully this is going to open the doors to trying out a lot of new boats that I haven't sailed before, and doing some features on different types of boats. Like I think the weekend before the events at Ocean Springs in April, hopefully there's going to be quite a few sailors there with quite a few different types of boat, and hopefully someone's going to be there with something that foils, and I'm going to be allowed to have a go. But what I'm really looking forward to, and this is going to surprise you, in Ocean Springs in April, is I really want to try a Prindle 16 or a Prindle 15 or an 18, but the 16 would be really nice, because I'd love to just know how it feels compared to the Hobie and compared to everything else. Because yeah, I think it's the missing link, the Prindle 16. Love to have a crack on that. All right, we have got Klaus in Germany, in Lübeck, on board. Great to have you with us. And we've got Jens on board, channel member. Greetings to all. Nice to have you with us, Jens. We've got Max. It's like Germany is tuning in. We've got Max in Rosenheim. Please send some wind for tomorrow for Lake Simsey. All right, we'll get some you, but it is the Greek postal system, which has been known to be slightly less quick. There we go. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it, unless anybody's got any last minute questions they'd like to slip in. Otherwise, it's time for me to go and have a beer. All right, Fawn G says, I like your helmet mounting most, because it serves us a perfect first person view. Yeah, I think that's how I like to put the videos together, is if you think of the different views, different camera angles as layers, the base layer is always the head cam, because that's the most important. And then the other cameras are kind of just to add a little bit of spice. So if it was cooking, the head cam would be the food, and the other cameras would be like the garnish, the sauce, the gravy, that sort of thing. There we go. All right. So a few things just coming in. Mark says, hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like button. Next one, Armored Lion says, have a good day, everyone. Ryan says, do you have a link for the shadow foam anywhere? Answer, yes, but not on hand. But if you go to the video, which is one of the more recent videos on Joyrider TV, where I put this bad boy together, if you go to the description of that video, you will find links to this shadow foam. And this stuff really is very cool. It just grips everything really nicely. In here, incidentally, I've also got this mobile charging unit, so I can be charging batteries and microphones and anything else while I'm on the go. I think that is pretty cool. There you go. All right. Rob says, is the change in sound an effect from reverb from the sale? Cheers. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we do get a slight change in sound, but I'm using these microphones. The Instamic, it is definitely the best microphone for doing what I do. 100%, hands down, this is the solution for good audio. So the audio from these microphones should be fairly consistent, because I basically have it under the shirt just here, so it's not affected by anything. But the only thing it is affected by is if I've been in the water, like if I've capsized or had a bit of a man overboard situation and it's been submerged, then it just takes a minute or so to clean out again. But I don't think there's much difference to the sound from the sales from that. But when the sound is coming just directly from the cameras, then perhaps there is a little bit of a bounce. But usually the wind noise would be far more prevalent than any reverb coming from the sail, I would find, in my experience. So there we go. So you could now do, if you'd like to, check out the video on how I put this great case together. That would be nice. Otherwise, have a great weekend. If you're getting out sailing, why not get on the stick? I want to see at least 5 new entries this weekend. All right. Thanks very much. And I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV very soon, I'm sure.